My freedom is openness. My openness is love. My love is freedom. It is easy for me to experience the world as a pleasant, friendly, beautiful place when I'm sitting with my beloved at the seaside restaurant, enjoying excellent fish, magnificent wine, a breathtaking sunset, and the harmony between us. In such moments, it's easy to keep an open heart and to say an unconditional yes to what is present. But what about when I find myself in a situation that deserves a rather different description, something more like terrible? Lying in an intensive care unit, for example, in pain and facing great uncertainty. In those moments, maintaining openness is not so easy. It would be much easier to close the heart, put on an emotional armor, or sink into an endless ocean of self-pity. And yet, it's precisely then that an immense opportunity appears. An opportunity to go deeper, not to surrender to our first reactions, but to recognize openness itself despite all apparent adversity. The outer world is what it is. One of the great misunderstandings of the psychospiritual scene is the belief that we can shape reality entirely according to our wishes. There are decisions we can make through our own agency. And there are external circumstances that lie completely outside of our sphere of control. The weather is a simple example. Likewise, sitting by the sea or lying in an intensive care bed is not always subject to our preferences. I'd like to share some experiences from the past few weeks. I've practiced Tantra and Dzogchen for many years. I know many processes that lead into openness, and I also know many situations in which that openness disappears, where I cannot find the gap between stimulus and the response. Times when I become angry at the world, when I look upon something with contempt because I perceive it as stupid, repulsive, or abhorrent. And then openness is gone, and with it, love and happiness. For several days, I was indeed a resident of an intensive care unit, and my condition was considerably less pleasant than the seaside scene described above. Yet that period became infinitely valuable to me. I received a gift there that is far too precious to keep to myself. I want to share it because I would not want to miss the possibility that what I experienced might inspire others to discover something similar. Perhaps you, perhaps now. Suddenly it was there, the mantra with which I began this text. For me, it works exactly as it is. If you wish to modify it or translate it in another language, because any other form resonates more deeply with you, please feel entirely free to do so. My freedom is openness. Even when the world of appearances refuses to obey your wishes, even when you certainly do not want to be connected to tubes and wires in an intensive care bed, even when the news you receive is not what you hoped for, when you worry about your personal situation or the state of the world, and do not have the power to stop wars, save the climate, convert extremists, or rise from your bed in perfect health. There's one freedom you always possess: the freedom to choose your response to what is. You can move into rejection or into resistance. You can generate anger, sorrow, and despair. Or you can open your heart and accept what is. This doesn't mean that you stop taking action. It doesn't mean that you refrain from doing what you believe is necessary or helpful in a given situation. But there's a profound difference between acting from a negative emotional state and acting from the state I'm trying to describe here. Open your heart. Isn't that one of those spiritual cliches that sounds nice but means very little? How is one supposed to do that? First and foremost, it's a matter of decision. If your primary reaction is fear or anger, that's perfectly fine. It's a part of the phenomenon to which you are opening yourself. I find it helpful to enter into an inner dialogue and simply say, there's fear. I give this fear space. And when I do that, I notice a small distance emerging between me and the fear. I realize that I am more than this fear. The fear becomes, in a sense, a temporary weather pattern, a thundercloud passing through a sky that is, by its nature, clear and untouched by the cloud itself. The fear is still there. It's not about repression or denial. It's about holding the fear within a larger space that is no longer defined solely by fear. I focus on my body. I expand my chest as much as I can. I spread my arms if the tubes allow it. I breathe slowly and deeply. And I observe what happens without forcing anything or trying to follow a rigid concept. And again I repeat, my freedom is openness. My freedom consists in choosing my response to the world: fear, anger, sorrow, rejection, helplessness, or openness. Because I've experienced the results often enough, I choose openness. I've tried both. There's no comparison. I give myself time. Openness doesn't always arrive at the push of a button. Again and again. Bodily awareness, breathing, inner dialogue, mantra. My openness is love. What comes next is something I cannot prove. It corresponds to my experience, and I believe it is a universal experience available to every being. Not only my own experiences point in this direction, but also what I've encountered in countless sources across cultures and centuries. Yet, proof would not matter anyway. This experience can become a life-changing truth for you only if you experience it yourself. You can read about it for decades without anything changing. But when what you have read, heard, and been told becomes your own direct experience through practice, the question of proof simply falls away. It's difficult to put this experience into words. Nevertheless, I will try. Along my path, I've encountered many texts that could never replace direct experience, yet served as an invaluable signpost on the journey one undertakes after deciding to follow this North Star in life. When you're open, when the emotions that constrict you, diminish you, and make you feel unfree have become so diluted within the infinite space of openness that they fade into the background or disappear entirely, though they may certainly return at any moment. And then you already know my freedom is openness. What remains is something that has always been present, even when it seemed hidden. Love. Love is not a feeling. In everyday language, many things are called love. Falling in love, for example, is a feeling, a hormonal rush. It can be wonderful, but it's not love. Nor is love the manipulation that often masquerades under that name. Power games, codependency, and psychological dramas may all be labeled love. What is love then? Love is simply love. No definition is really necessary because you know when love fills your inner space. There's no possibility of confusion, provided there's openness. My openness is love. Love requires no object, no counterpart. It fills space by its very nature, and yet it can express itself in the world and find a you. But it depends on no person and no thing. And from this arises the third beautiful step on this path. My love is freedom. When I'm established in openness, and when love emerges clearly within that openness, I become free in my choices and actions. I'm no longer constrained by the compulsion of immediate reaction. I can choose what to do. I can discern from my own perspective which action I wish to take in order to contribute to the result I hope to see. Without fantasies of omnipotence, without promises of infallibility, without being attached to outcomes, without clinging to concepts of success and failure. One question helps me whenever I'm unclear about what the most helpful action might be. What would love do? And then I pause. Sometimes action must be immediate. If an injured person is lying by the roadside, meditative breathing exercises are not the appropriate response. In such situations, it's usually quite clear what needs to be done. But in so many other situations, we can afford to take a little more time. We can step back and cultivate that precious gap between stimulus and response. I have no idea whether it's possible to embody this perfectly during a human lifetime. Fortunately, perfection is not required. It's a path of practice. It is always worthwhile to confront one's own shadow. The work of C.G. Jung is an excellent starting point for further explorations in this direction. Again and again, we align ourselves with this North Star, even after our actions have sometimes gone badly wrong. And finally, I would like to share an inspiration I received from the highly worthwhile book Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet by Thich Nhat Hanh. Many of us are outraged by the state of the world, and rightly so, I believe. I know these feelings of outrage, anger, and grief all too well from my own experience. Yet, these emotions and the actions that arise directly from them are often not helpful. In the end, they tend to reinforce the very problems we wish to solve. The only path by which we can truly benefit both ourselves and the world is the path of openness, the love that appears within that openness, and the actions that arise from that love. My freedom is openness. My openness is love. My love is freedom. In that spirit, let us practice.